Hi guys, welcome back to session 78 of Java Full Stack Made Easy. In this session, we will be talking about the main scope and the lifecycle methods with Java based configuration. We have already discussed about the bean scope in the XML based configuration as well. So here we will be learning how do we do a bean scope with the Java based configuration. And lifecycle methods, we did not talk about the XML based configuration because XML based configuration is pretty old concept, and in the new applications that are being developed in Spring, most of the Java developers today prefer the Java based, or you say the annotation based configuration. Fine. So let's now talk about the scope of a bean. So now I will create a bean scope, that is for library. Let us create a bean scope. If you remember, in one of the XML based configuration also, I have added a scope to the library bean. So here let us add a bean scope. By default we know that it is the singleton scope. So let us add a scope here. So to create a scope of the bean, or to add a scope of the bean, we have an annotation called as the scope annotation. And now let us create the prototype scope, because default one is the singleton. So prototype scope, let's save it. And we know that if we have a prototype scope of a bean, what happens is that for every single instance, that means every bean that is created will have a separate memory. So let's save this and go to the book service and see what happens when we call this bean once again. So we'll have a library and we will have a library 1. Both library and library 1 will be injected, and both will have the similar values. So first let us see that, since both are injected out of the same class, so that is the same. Now let us change one of the library and see what happens to other library. So here I'm gonna say library dot set name. Now both were central library. Let's change this to something new. So when I change it to something new, and now when I see both the libraries, that is library, obviously for library it has to be changed, and for library 1, since the prototype scope is being used for library 1, it should not affect. So when I run this, you can see that for library something new is changed. For library 1, for library 1 it is the same, because I did not do anything with that. Similarly, if the scope, that is the default scope, if it is singleton, so if the scope is singleton, then obviously change to one of the instance will reflect to the other one, because the memory is same when it comes to the singleton scope. So this is how we provide the scope using the Java based configuration. For singleton we don't need to specify anything, because singleton is default, prototype is not. So if you want a prototype scope, then you have to explicitly mention it. So I'll just copy this configuration, and let's create a day 77 repository for this. Sorry, this should be day 78. Yes, so day 78 demo 1 bean scope. So hopefully the concept of bean scope that we have already discussed is again clear with how do we add a bean scope when it comes to the Java based configuration. Now let's talk about the lifecycle methods, which we have not spoke about in the XML based configuration. So what these lifecycle methods do? Lifecycle methods are something like what needs to be done when the bean is created, or what needs to be done when the bean is being destroyed. So that's what a lifecycle method is all about. So let us first go back to the configuration, and I will remove this prototype scope from here and also the singleton scope from here, or else just let's put up a comment on these two things. So let's save it and come back to the library and sorry, the service, and here I don't want all these things to be given. So let's talk about the life cycle methods of the bean, right? So let's go to normal class. Let's say there is a book class and I want to execute something out of the book class. Okay, so or may it can be a library as well. So let's do it with the library now. So I have a library class and I'm creating the instance. That means I'm injecting calling that library instance here. So let's see how do we specify things like the uh, init method and the destroy method for the same. So if I want to perform something out of like for example in this library, if I want to do something uh, before the constructor or before the bean is being while the bean is being initialized, so I want to do something, so at that time I can create special methods here, like for example let's say it is going to be public void, let's call it as init, and I want this method to be considered as a life cycle method. Okay, so how do I mark it as a lifecycle method? Maybe what I want is I want the default ISBN to be equal to something, maybe the default ISBN to be equal to 500, and oh sorry, this is library, right? So in the library I want to give the library name, the default library name should be maybe a central library or something, or let's call it as city central library. Okay, that's something I want to give it by default, and then maybe I want to tell that this is our init method, and I'll just put a system.out.println here, and I'll call this as uh, init method, so that I get to know that the init method is being called and the book is being initialized. And if I want to initialize the book at that time, obviously I have to say book initialize. So let's say the book equals to new book. ISBN I want to set here, ISBN maybe I want to set it as 900, and the library name should be the library name that I have given here. And what I will do is I will not perform an auto wiring here. If I don't have an auto wiring, obviously the default stuff has to be taken, or else let's have an auto wire at this initialization state. Let's print system.out.println, let's print the book here. Okay, and also let's print the library name so that we understand that it has happened. Okay, let's save it now. And just by writing it as an init method, it doesn't make any sense, because Spring does not go ahead and understand that that is our init method. Let's save it and run this and see what happens first. So when I run this, nothing happens at all. So library same as that, no city center library, init method is not being called, nothing is done, right? That's because while creating this configuration, the library bean, we did not specify that there is a init method for this. So while creating the bean itself, when you name the bean, you can also provide in things like the init method for this. So we can just say init method and whatever the name of the method. So init is the method name that I have given in the library. So you can see that this is the method that has to be called while creating this particular bean. So let's go to the service, let's run this and see the result. Now you can see that the name of the library is being printed, city center library, and the book object is being initialized. Fine, and the ISBN and 900 everything. Since the auto wiring has happened, and you can notice that the library name here is city center library and also the ISBN is 900. So that way we can have an init method that can be used. Similarly, like an init method, we can also have a destroy method. So these are called as the life cycle methods. Now these life cycle methods, what they do, they are also called as the life cycle hooks in some of the programming. So the constructor gets called, then the init method gets called, then the values gets initialized, and also we can call up the uh, destroy method as well. So let's now also create a destroy method and see things how it works. Okay, so like we have created a method inside this library for the init, we can also have a destroy method, and then we can call that destroy method upon the destruction of the bean. So let's go here and let's have a destroy let's call this as a destroy method. You can name it anything, not just the destroy, you can name it anything. And maybe I just want to see this is null after this, and the book will be equal to null or something. Generally we destroy everything, right? So let's make it null, and then system.out.println book will obviously be null and everything, and let's call it as destroy. Okay, let's save it. And now let's try and call this method and see how things work here before we close the context. So let's save it, and we go to the service and see whether the destroy method gets called or not. So when I'm trying to run this piece of code, you can see that the init method is being called, the initialization has happened, everything is working fine, but the destroy method that I have written is not being called. So the first thing is that I did not mention what is the destroy method there. So let us go ahead and specify the destroy method. So the name of the destroy method is destroy itself. Okay, now let's save it and see whether the destroy method gets called now or not. So when I run this now as well, the destroy method is not being called. So why is that? That's because the destroy method, it is necessary for the destroy method to be called, we have to close the context, that is going to be our factory has to be closed when we are destroying that. Okay, so let's see, why is this not part of this uh, annotation config application context? That's fine. So factory, all right, so let's see, or else we will use, oh sorry, so I'm using a bean factory here. Obviously the bean factory does not contain the close method that is coming up from there. So it is the annotation config application context that contains the close method that has to be that will be required for this. So I'll go for this, and now I will see a factory dot close. Yeah, so here is the close, factory dot close, which will be required if we are calling the destroy method. Let's save it and now run this, and you can see that the destroy method is called, and I have written it as book, the book is initialized, so we can say it as book is destroyed. Okay, let's save it, and that's it. So this is how we call the lifecycle methods. What we have to do is that we have to create some special, we have to create the normal methods here, and destroy what needs to be done when the bean is being destructed, and init what needs to be done when the bean is being initialized. So what needs to be done in these stages can be specified into init and the destroy method, and when you are creating the bean, you specify which method is acting as a init method and which method is acting like a destroy method. And for destroy method, it is mandatory to close the factory, or in generally we call it as the context. So we have to close the context or the factory if we want the destroy method to be called. Fine. Also what I will try and do is that, so in this case, if you remember, the previous example was about the prototype scope. So I'm calling the I'm now using the prototype scope, and then I try to run this, and you can see that when I use the prototype scope, even though I'm closing the factory, the destroy method is not called. So that also makes sense. Why is that? That's because when it is prototype, there is a possibility that there are multiple instances of the bean. That means multiple memories are allocated to the bean. That's why the destroy method is not being called here. That is again one important thing. That's the reason here I came up and commented out the prototype scope before I show you the lifecycle methods. Okay, so hopefully you have now understood the scope of the bean, and also you have understood the lifecycle methods of the bean. So let me put this also into the repository for you. So this is gonna be our demo 2. Let's call it as init and destroy lifecycle methods. So the above one is the configuration, then the service, And lastly, the main class, that is the library where I have specified the init and destroy. Alright, so what we have seen is that this is about the Java based configuration where we are using the bean and then we are configuring the things. Fine. So what if we have the annotation based configuration where we tell Java what needs to be done? Okay, so let's see some of those example, or maybe one or two such example, because in terms of Spring Boot, the next thing that we will be discussing, there we will see a lot of these configurations where a lot of annotation based configuration. So what I will do now is that once again I'll go to this configuration class that I have, which we created before. So in the configuration class I will not be actually creating the uh, beans. Okay, so let's not create the beans there. So let's have the uh, class and we will simply create the class, or maybe initialize that using the component annotation and everything that we have discussed. If you remember, in the library I have written it here. So when it comes to annotation based configuration, put annotation on classes to tell Spring what it has to manage, right? So this is something which I'll be using now. So what I'm going to do is I have a simple book class here. So in the configuration class, what I will do is I'll not create this bean and everything that I have here. Okay, let's just clean that up. A configuration class which is completely clean. And now what I will do is that let's go to the service as well here, and inside the service let's not take this library and everything, let's just remove that, let's keep it simple. And from the factory let's take just the simple book, library.get book, sorry, get bean, not the book, get bean, which is gonna be of type book class, book.class. So I'd like to have that book initialized and print the book. Okay, so let's save it now, and let's create the bean using the component now. So here we have the book class, and what we want to do is we just want to tell that this is the component. Okay, so we have just told that it is a component, and now what we will do is let this book have all the details about this. And yeah, what I can also do is in this default constructor I have not written anything. If I want to initialize the value of this ISBN and name inside this, I can do that. So let's do that first here, which is gonna be what, uh, ISBN equals to some value, maybe, sorry, it is the integer type of data, so maybe 90 or something, and then the name of the book, some default name, maybe I want to name this book as my career, or let's call it as my life or something. Let's save it, and what I'm gonna do is in the configuration, you notice I have not done anything, I'm just saying that it is a configuration. And as for now, we are least bothered about the library stuff here. So we have a book which we are considering as a component, and inside the configuration I've just written configuration. And now when it comes to the annotation based configuration, if you look in the library stuff, I told you that, so the important annotations I have written here, which is gonna be component, service and all. So here one more important annotation comes up into picture, that is the uh, component scan. So component scan tells what needs to be scanned, that means where the component has to be checked. Okay, so here we have the configuration, and also what we have to do is we have to say the component scan. So when it comes to component scan takes package, and we tell in which package the components are there. So if you remember, I've created a base package that is org.springcore.demo. So I'm saying that you go and find out the components inside this, or I can also say find out the components inside the model package. So if I say demo package, it is going to find out the components in the entire demo package. If I say demo.model, it is going to find out the component inside the model package. So let us save this now. And in the service we have already told that You have to look for the configuration in my app config. So my app config tells what, tells the component, tells the Spring container to scan for the components, or maybe the repositories and everything inside this particular package model. So we do have it there, and let's see the book is initialized or not. So when I run this, you can see that the book is initialized, the ISBN is 90, the name is my life. So you can see that here, which I have initialized. So this is one way of doing it. So let me first give you this, and also there is one more annotation using which we can initialize the values. So let's call this as demo 3. This is annotation based configuration. So here is the book that I have initialized, and the next thing is the config. So here is the configuration file where I'm configuring the book bean, and lastly the service, book service. So with that said, what we can also do is that, what if suppose our default constructor is not there, or we don't want to specify that, what we can also do is, instead of doing this, we can simply use another annotation here in annotation based configuration, that is value, and specify the value here, maybe like a 99 or 100 or 200, whatever value we want to specify. We can specify the value name, let's call it as new name, so that when we run this, we understand that the constructor is not there and this is being used. So ISBN 99 and new name. So value annotation can also be used to specify the value when it comes to the uh, pure annotation based configuration. So let me give you this as well. So annotation based configuration demo 4 at the rate value. So that's how we can provide the value. Configuration doesn't have anything at all. Configuration just says go and scan the bean here. We can combine the beans, we can combine the Java based and annotation based configuration together and achieve the result as well. That's also possible. That means we can tell the Spring container to search for the components, and also can create the beans accordingly. All right, so this also looks good. Similarly, now what we are gonna do is, in the previous example, if you remember, we have spoke about what we have talked about, something like the like the init method and the destroy method. So similarly, what we can do is, in terms of annotation based configuration, where we are not specifying the @bean. So in the previous example, we had the bean and we configured the init method and the destroy method. So here we don't have the bean at all. So if I show you this init method and the destroy method, so here while I was creating a bean, at that time I was telling that it is the init method and it is the destroy method. Now I don't have that, right? So since I don't have that, what needs to be done now? And also, what if I put a component annotation on top of a library, whether it is going to take that as well or not? So first of all, I will go to the library, and also I will say the library is also a component. So library has to be managed by the Spring container. And also I have the auto wire, qualifier is there. So I don't need a qualifier now. I'm auto wiring the book, and this is the init method, and this is the destroy method that I have created. So how will I tell that? Now first of all, let's get the library and see what happens. So this is my book service. So here is the book get bean. So instead of getting the book bean, let's get the library bean out of this. So library dot class, and obviously this has to be library, and print library. So let's save it and run and see what happens to the library. So we have the library, and the book is injected because we are using an auto wire. All that is fine. So new name, everything works fine. So if I go to the library, it is being, this thing is being injected, and the book, that is this particular bean that is created here, value 99, new name, that is being injected. Now that means that init method is not working. City center library and this 900 library name, this is not working here, right? So what needs to be done now? How will I tell that this is the init method? When I had this, I told, when I was creating a bean, I told that this is the init method and this is the destroy method. Since I'm not creating this bean at all, how will I do that? How will I create it now? So in this case, uh, two more annotation comes into picture, which is called as the post construct and the pre destroy. So the post construct and the pre-destroy annotation, and this annotations are actually the Jakarta annotations. So let's go to Maven repo and find out those. Maven repo. All right. So here I have the Jakarta annotation. Let's see. This is copied and let's go to the pom.xml. Spring core dependency, all that is added. Let's add the Jakarta annotation. Let's now see the post construct. Yes, that's there. And now auto wire, why is that not working? Let's check that. Bean factory component post construct, that's all that is fine. Let's just save it. So post construct, that's part of the Jakarta annotation, so that's why we have to include the dependency for that. So I have added a post construct now. Let's go to the book service, let's save it and see that the init method is being called. Now you can see that the init method is being called, initialized, and the city center library, the book and everything is initialized as well. So that's how you can make use of the lifecycle methods when it comes to the annotation based configuration, where you don't have the complete control over the bean. Okay, now the next point is that the destroy method. So let's go to the library and let's use the destroy method. So for the destroy method, we have the uh, post uh, sorry, pre-destroy. So post construct is for init and then the pre-destroy is for the destroy method. So pre-destroy, let's just save it and once again let's run this. While we are running this, what we have to do is that we have to close the factory to get that. So factory dot close. Done. Let's save it and now it should close the factory as well. So that way we can make use of the life cycle methods when it comes to completely pure annotation based configuration. And in this example you might have noticed that while configuring, when I'm making use of the annotation based configuration, at that time I'm not creating the bean by using the @bean method. Fine. So similarly, like for the library also, I'm simply performing this stuff like the post construct and then the pre-destroy and all those stuff are happening here. Fine. So let me share this as well with you. So this is our book class, purely annotation based configuration. This is our demo 5, annotation based. What is it? Init and destroy. So my book bean, library, where in the library itself I have specified the post construct and pre destroy. Then the configuration is same. Configuration doesn't say anything except that go and scan the components, and then the service. All right. So that's done. Now what I will do is, once again I'll go to this library and I'll remove this post construct pre-destroy stuff here from here. Okay, let's save it. Okay, let's save this. Now you might also be wondering, like, what if I want to name any of the component, and based on that name I want to inject something or something, like bean had a name. So here also, while creating the components, you can simply create a component with the name as well. So you can provide in the name of the component. So like for example, in this case, if you have multiple book instances, multiple book components, so you can simply give the name of that, and maybe let's give the name as test book. Okay, let's save it. Component test book. And what I can do is, inside the library, if it is unable to find the book by type, we can say at the rate qualifier, and simply write that here. So that will be injected. Let's see what's the problem now. So this is about library dependency express, no qualifying bean of type, expected at least one bean, qualifies auto wire candidate dependency, factory test book. Let me check. The book component is test book, that's fine. And inside the library I'm performing an auto wire, and that is what the test book. B is with the capital B, so that's why the qualifier was searching for the bean with the name test book, which was not there. That's why the exception was there. That's meaningful again. So this way you can get the book and inject that. So you can have the this only means what can have. You can create the components with the names as well, and then you can use the qualifiers to inject those specific beans for you. So hopefully this concept of annotation based configuration is also clear with you. And when it comes to annotation based configuration, we have discussed how components work, and in the Spring Boot we will be talking about the other annotations, like what other annotations like service, repository, controllers, and everything. So hopefully you are capable of now creating the Spring Core module using both the XML based configuration as well as the Java based or the annotation based configuration. In this session we have also seen the Jakarta annotation, which is going to be the pre-construct and post destroy. I hope I have already shared this annotation init and destroy method with you. So that's it in this particular session. We will be talking about the Spring Boot in the next session, which is going to be very important thing for us. And there we will be talking about the other annotation like the service annotation and the repository annotation and all that. So see you in the next session. If you're liking in the series, do share the series and subscribe to my channel to motivate me to create more such contents for you. Thank you. See you in the next session.